Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Students, today we will discuss the process of pollination and fertilization in Ephedra. Pollination is the process in which the pollen grains these are transferred to the female gametophyte. In Ephedra, usually the pollination occurs through the wind, and in the female gametophyte, when the female gametophyte becomes mature, then the tissue which is present above the female gametophyte in the nucellus, it is disorganized. When the archegonium is at its early stages of development, and where the tissue is organized, nucellar tissue is organized, here a cavity or space is produced, and this is known as the pollen chamber, where the pollen grains these fall after the pollination. Pollen grains these stay here after pollination. When pollination occurs, when the pollen grains are transferred to the female gametophyte, and before reaching to female gametophyte, when they reach to the ovule, then at the tip of the ovule a pollination droplet is present, and the pollen grains these are attached to this pollination droplet which is present at the tip of the ovule on the micropilot tube, and these pollens which are attached to this droplet, these are then caught in it, and then they reach into the pollen chamber with the this water droplet. Many pollen grains these are present in the pollen chamber of each ovule, and only one succeeded to fertilize. This is the diagram to show the pollen droplets in the ovules of Ephedra, which are present at the tips of the Ephedra. This is a pollination droplet. This is also the pollination water droplet which is present at the tip of the ovule. This is the tip of the ovules. Here the micropilot tubes are also present, and this pollination droplet is present at the tips of the ovules. This is also a pollination droplet, and this in this pollination droplet, when the pollen grains these fall on this, these are attached to this pollination droplet, and this pollination droplet it enters through the micropyle, and it reaches to the female gametophyte with this droplet, and in this way many pollen grains they enter into the pollen chamber with this pollination droplet. Most of the gymnosperms they are wind pollinated, it has been observed, but some are insect pollinated, and in Ephedra both wind pollination and insect pollination occurs. Then after pollination, the next step is fertilization, the fusion of the male gametes with the female gamete. The pollen tube which is produced by the pollen grain, it grows down between the neck cells, means in the pollen chamber the pollen grains which are present they produce the pollen tube, and this pollen tube enters through the pollen chamber into the female gametophyte, and then in the female gametophyte the archegonia are present. This pollen tube it enters through the neck cells of the archegonium, and then reaches the egg nucleus, and it releases the male nuclei into it. Out of the two male nuclei, one of the male nucleus it moves towards the egg nucleus and fuses with it to form the diploid cell, which is known as the diploid nucleus, which is known as the zygotic nucleus, zygote nucleus. And the second male nucleus, it has been reported that it fuses with the ventral canal nucleus to effect a double fertilization, but this requires confirmation. And in one search, it has been observed that in Ephedra, the fusion of the second male nucleus, it regularly occurs with the ventral canal nucleus within the egg cytoplasm. So double fertilization is found in Ephedra, and it shows or it represents an evolutionary homology, double fertilization in Ephedra and the double fertilization in the angiosperms. Now we see the diagram of fertilization. This is the pollen chamber, which is formed by the disorganization of the nucellus tissue above the female gametophyte, and the pollen grains with the pollination droplet through the micropilot tube. These enter into this pollen chamber, and here the pollen tube arises, and this pollen tube, after this pollination chamber, then it enters into the female gametophyte. This is a pollen tube. Then after entering into the female gametophyte, it reaches to the neck region of the archegonium, and then it reaches to the female egg, and here it releases its both male nuclei. First male nucleus, it unites with the egg to form the zygote, and the second male nucleus, it has been reported that it unites with the ventral canal nucleus. Here is another diagram to show the process of fertilization. This is the archegonium in the female gametophytes. First male gamete, it unites with the egg, and the second male gamete, it unites with the ventral canal nucleus. This is a diagram to show only the nuclei. This is the second male nucleus. This is the first male nucleus. First male nucleus will unite with the egg nucleus, and the second male nucleus will unite with the ventral canal nucleus. And here in this diagram, it has been shown that the fusion of the male nucleus with the egg, it produces the zygote. Diploid nucleus, zygote nucleus is produced, and the fusion of the ventral canal nucleus and tracheal male nucleus, it produces the another cell which will not be developed into embryo, and this zygote will only develop into the embryo. So students, today we have discussed the process of pollination and fertilization in Ephedra, and in next lecture, inshallah, we will discuss the structure and development of the embryo which is developed from the zygotic nucleus.